Hi, guys, and welcome to the Women's Health Summit, where you're gaining clarity so you can lead with confidence and finally turn your passion into profit. I'm Laura Sherrill, a high-performance women's health coach and the founder of Balanced Bombshells, and today I'm here with Sensi Graves, who is a professional kiteboarder, entrepreneur, speaker, kiteboarding instructor, and writer. And what I'm excited to talk to you guys about today with Sensi too is that she launched a swimwear label called Sensi Graves Bikini in 2012 to not only meet the demands of her sport after she lost too many string bikinis in the surf. She decided to create bathing suits that would actually stay on for female athletes, but also be a sustainable clothing line. So I'm really excited to share her mission and how she's empowering women in water sports, but also giving them the confidence they need to be out in the world and to just be awesome. So Sensi, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with everyone.
You're like with your tribe. It's all like female entrepreneurs who want to be able to like help women just live their life to the best capacity. So I'm just so excited because you bring such a unique spin on how you can be out there helping women with their confidence and their mindset. So before we get started, I have been hiding my shirt because I wore this for you today. I was like getting dressed and I was like, what does Sensi deserve for me to wear? And it's called Making Some Waves or Making
Oh, that
Some
is
Waves.
too cute.
So I was like, I forgot I had this shirt and I was getting dressed and I was like, that is perfect. Like just so perfect. So not only are you making waves in like your business and I think like the changing nature for female owned businesses, but also your sport.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And water is just such a fluid thing that connects us. We're full of water. We're not, what is it, 90% water? Humans make 70?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
I don't know. But it's just such a calming element and something that I really have found a lot of joy in, and I think really brings people a lot of joy and brings us all together. So that's so cute. I love it.
I like totally forgot I had it. I was like, this is perfect. So I'd love to know how you got started in your business and why.
Yes, that's such a good question. It's always the burning question. I launched my business right out of college. I was 23 and I was working as a kiteboarding instructor. So for those of you who don't know what kiteboarding is, it's essentially wakeboarding, but you have 20 meters of lines, a kite in the sky, and you're pretty much driving your own boat. So you're creating power with the kite and pulling yourself across the water. And just out of college, I was living in North Carolina and working as a kiteboarding instructor, and so I was in the water every single day. I was kiting, I was surfing, I was instructing, and I was in a bikini every single day. And I just quickly grew tired of the swimwear that was on the market. At that time, it was really either one of two camps. It was really performance focused, like the Pranas and the Patagonias and things that were just active design, but very frumpy. Or it was Rip Curl and Roxy, kind of like the surf brands, but they were very lifestyle focused, and not only did they not stay on, but they also didn't show the strong, powerful woman that was being active that I really resonated with. And I was like, I don't want to just use a bikini that's not going to work, number one, but I also don't want to just look to this woman that's just lying on the beach. And I mean, of course I love to lie on the beach as well, but that was just all that they were showing. It was like they would show the men surfing and the girl lying on the beach, and I was like, well, I'm a surfer, I want to be empowered by that imagery. And so it was just creating this brand that was a fusion of fashion and function, and also really inspired women to get out there and surf and kite and be active, and then also just lifted us up and empowered us together and provided motivation to live a healthy, awesome lifestyle and feel good about ourselves and good in our bodies.
Yeah, no, and I love that because I mean, any woman going to wear a bathing suit can feel anxiety driven, and especially if you were in one every single day. We also teach women's health, so it's like, what about what can happen before and during our period? Like just really trying to be mindful of not only our mindset and our self-confidence and how we feel, but also working with our bodies on a monthly basis too. But I love how you bring in the environmental element to your clothing line as well, because I know, like, I feel like our generation is like really conscious of the environment and like understanding our impact on it. Especially I don't know if you've watched this. I don't remember if it was on Netflix or not, but it was basically about a documentary on like fast fashion
Yeah.
and how many clothes are now basically in landfills and just kind of eating up a lot of our like earth. So I just love that you bring in the sustainability element as well.
Yeah, to me, that's absolutely crucial, especially in this day and age. And you hit right on it. When you look at the stats in the fashion industry, it is dismal. It's in a really dire place. It's the second biggest polluter in the world besides oil. It's the second biggest consumer of water. It's also one of the top polluters of water. And not only are we producing more stuff than we ever have been, but we're keeping it for less time. So
Right.
like we buy way more things and then we keep them for about half the amount of time as we were even just 10 years ago. And so just this stuff going to landfills is so overwhelming.
Yeah.
And I honestly almost didn't even want to start a manufacturing brand because I was like, I don't want to just make more products. I don't want to make more stuff.
Right.
We don't really need that in the world. But then I looked to Patagonia and the impact that they've been able to have. And I thought, swimwear brands are going to exist. And if we can do this the right way, if we can be a leader for other brands to follow, and if we can spread conscious consumerism,
Yeah.
then this is something that I should continue with and move forward. So to me, it's just absolutely crucial. And luckily there are tons of technologies now for like the fabrics that we use are made completely from recycled plastic bottles and reclaimed fishing nets. It's amazing. It's beautiful fabric. It's buttery. It's great at feeling, and it really holds up over time. So that possibility is there, and it's our job to just tell people about it and really promote the sustainable lifestyle.
Yeah. I mean, I just love that because when I saw like the images they had of just the landfills of just bags of clothes and, I think too with the rise of like the fashion bloggers and Instagram and how easy it is to be able to shop for like cheaper products, they don't last as long. So like, and then like each season we're getting told that like whatever you were wearing last year is like out of date and you need to change up your clothes. So I definitely try to fall in the category of like timeless pieces. And I'm more likely to invest in something that's a little bit more expensive, knowing that it's going to last me a while, and including swimwear. Like I
Yeah,
don't always buy bathing suits every single year,
yeah,
like it just, or you could like, what I like too, I don't know if your line does this, where you have like separates where you can kind of mix and match the different
yeah,
styles and looks. You can kind of like an outfit, like you're going to change out
yeah,
accessories. You can still do that with your bathing suits.
yeah, yeah. We saw everything mix and match. Also because, well, wearing a swimsuit is vulnerable enough, and we're not the same on the top of the bottom, and it's
Right.
so hard to get the perfect fit for women. I mean, things can fit. I'm telling you, the sizing that we do between a small and a large, we change like quarter inch
Yeah.
on the pattern here and there, and so we get really caught up in the size of something, but it really is just what works for your body. And so
Right.
yeah, it's all just it's just a crazy world. I did not have any idea that I would be a swimwear designer.
No, but I think it's just such a fun way to not only bring your past experience, but then you recognized a hole in the market of like,
Mhm.
this is a need. And I feel like that's when entrepreneurs rise up, when you notice that there's a need in the market. So I know you mentioned that you had some bathing suits that didn't stay in place. Do you have any embarrassing stories to share about
You
wanting
know,
to change bathing suits?
I actually have one from my girlfriend. It didn't happen to me. It happened to a girlfriend, and it's pretty funny though because she was a kiter as well, is a kiter. And one time on Maui, she was going out for a session, and some guy that was like this videographer was just like, "Hey Debbie, would you do me a favor and throw this GoPro on your line so that you can, because the lines, when you put it on your lines, it looks down at you.
Mm.
So remember, kiteboarding, we have big long lines, and then the kite's up above us. So she put the GoPro high up on the lines, and the guy was like, "Can you just get a couple shots for me?" And she was like, I guess, okay. She wasn't that into it, but decided to do it. And long story short, the session for her ended up being just really catastrophic. Like her kite went down, everything was going wrong. And at one point she found herself just being drugged through the water. And of course she wasn't wearing a Sensi bikini. She was wearing something else and her top came off, and she has a large chest. She's a full D cup, and her top was coming off and she's just dragging through the water and the GoPro is filming her. And, and she's just like, oh my gosh, what is happening? What are we doing? I don't even know this guy really. Who is this? I don't want to give him the footage. And she was so embarrassed. She's like, I don't want to even give this GoPro back to this random dude on the beach, but it's his. So, and she couldn't just delete the card. So she was just
she like, you need to delete this? Yeah. Did she get him to delete it?
She said she never even knows what happened to the footage, but it's
like somewhere online.
Because she didn't want to do it in the first place, and then all this stuff went wrong, and her bathing suit top came off, and she's just like.
So did she tell him when she was giving it back of like, hey?
No, she was too embarrassed.
I feel like I would have just been like, I don't think you should use this, but the fact that she didn't say anything, and then just imagine him going home and watching the footage and just being like, this is the best day ever. Like, basically, it's like, you're welcome, guy. Stranger on the beach.
It's ridiculous, Debbie.
I know. So something I also wanted to talk to you about, because I know you're such a big advocate for like, not only like female confidence, but like empowerment. How has your work kind of segued, not only providing like teaching how to kiteboard and be like a surfer, having bathing suits that women can feel good in, but your mission now in terms of helping women feel confident and secure within themselves?
Yeah, I love that. And that really has come about just completely naturally because, I mean, our mission is empower women in water sports, but really over time, over the last 8 years of owning this business, I've just seen enough women try on bathing suits, and I realize how vulnerable it is to even put on a bathing suit and how hard women are on their own bodies. I mean, when I have people come and I do custom fittings with them and they're just, nitpicking this, oh, this doesn't look good, this doesn't look good. And I'm just like, well, wow, what I'm seeing is that you look gorgeous and you look great. And we are just so hard on ourselves that I really wanted to incorporate more into the brand confidence techniques and mindset techniques and other tools to help women and men just feel better in their bodies, because when we feel good, we can go out into the world and do more things, and it really opens us up. I know for me, if I am having that niggling voice in my head that's just, the negative gremlins of, oh, you don't look so great, like you can feel in your body, your shoulders slump, you kind of tuck your gut in, you're not standing up as straight, you're not feeling as good about yourself, and it's limiting. And so I really just want to help other people, other women in particular, feel good in their bodies and let their light shine as brightly as I know it can.
Mm-hmm. And I love that, because I've noticed that a lot in my work too, is just the amount of guilt and shame that women feel on a day-to-day basis. And then like when you put our cycle into it, because of our hormone shifts and how we naturally flow throughout the month, it can cause those damaging thoughts. But the way around it is to understand how to look at things objectively. So having tools for how to move through your mindset, how to strengthen. It's kind of like strengthening a muscle, just like you would work out at the gym. You have to like work out your mindset, and it's an ongoing process. Like it never goes away, especially when you think of like women across our lifetime. How we are as teens is going to be different to how we are in our 20s, which is also going to be different to how we are in our 30s, 40s, 50s. But then also when you're working out a lot, maybe for your sport, versus like your off season where you're not working out so much, or when you're going to go through pregnancy and postpartum, like there's just so many different shifts. How can your mind flow with that? So I just, in my mind right now, I'm coming back to the point you said in the beginning, where it was like, we're so fluid, like with water, and like a woman's body is meant to be fluid too. And so the fact that you can bring in that fluidity with her mindset and like strengthening self-confidence, I just think is such a powerful mission and is just so needed right now. So I think we talked about too, about like a woman's mindset and her cycle, and just how much her body image is connected to just like everything. Have you noticed like what kind of blocks have you noticed with women outside of like, oh, I'm not looking as good? Have you noticed any like trigger points for women outside of just like trying on a bathing suit?
I definitely seems like there's just a lot of self-doubt kind of in general. And I know that I've experienced this a lot personally. I mean, it took me 10 years, I want to say 10, the last 10 years of working on feeling good about what I'm doing. Like I didn't feel like I was successful for the longest time, even though as this pro kite, still am pro kiteboarder, traveling around the world, competing, running my own business. Like it looks really glamorous and great, but on the inside, I was just like, I'm not good enough. I'm not as far along as I should be. And just having this imposter syndrome, and it come to find out 70% of people feel this way. And so just this bit of self-doubt that we aren't good enough. I mean, I know you've probably felt that way, right? Like you're not enough.
Yeah.
And it's all with the social media and the comparisons and being jealous of what other people have, and then just constantly raising the bar and not giving ourselves the credit that we truly deserve, and kind of just, hiding ourselves for fear of judgments from other people and all the things that go into it. That's kind of been the second biggest thing, is just having this I'm not enough mindset.
Which I think is really powerful to admit too, because like as a pro athlete and as like an entrepreneur, it's like you're definitely seen as a leader in that space. Mm-hmm. But it's like every woman I've talked to, regardless of how far along she is in her career or not, has struggled with that at some point. So I feel like it also humanizes us and connects us, but like very few women actually talk about it. Mm-hmm. So it's like definitely opening up the conversation of vulnerability, and just whenever I'm in a group with women, there's like a collective sigh when we talk about guilt and shame and not feeling good enough. And women just kind of come down into themselves a little bit to be like, I'm not alone. Like, I'm just so not alone. Like, I definitely felt like I couldn't open up on certain things. So like I had struggled with PMDD, which is like a more intense version of PMS. So like you get more of the emotional reactivity before your period. So I had low progesterone, where progesterone is a very calming hormone. So if I didn't have enough before my period, it was kind of like I was internally battling inside myself, and I didn't know how to emotionally work through the internal overwhelm. So it comes out in a lot of like anger. My tone would not be the best, and it was so outside of who I would naturally be anyway. So it would always surprise me of like, why is my tone so terrible to, either like my mom or my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband. Thankfully I fixed that, because he would have like probably not signed up for a lifetime with me. But I just never talked about it, because like my friends didn't have the same type of struggles. So I felt like I needed to kind of like struggle in silence, which I feel like a lot of women feel in terms of our self-confidence, a term of our self-worth, or especially, and you can maybe talk about this, of when you're breaking out to try something new that's scary. Did you notice like a lot of the fear-based thoughts coming up when you were like taking action towards the unknown?
Oh, certainly. But I want to point out something that you said, which is the vulnerability piece of it, which is huge. And I'm actually reading Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. Have you read that?
I haven't read that. No, it's on my list. I was just listening to her new podcast, and I was like, she just got such a soothing way. It's like, I need more of Brene Brown in my life. So I've heard her book is great, so I'll have to get it.
It's really good. And she talks, this whole book is about vulnerability and shame. And it's really interesting, one piece that she says, which is that when we see someone else being vulnerable, we're like, yay, great, this opens it up and makes it okay for me. But we personally have such a hard time being vulnerable. And you're completely right. Just even sharing that I don't feel successful feels super vulnerable. Mm-hmm. But it's that connection that builds, that's like, you're not in this alone, that is so entirely crucial. So it's really interesting to just think, oh, when we see someone else being vulnerable, it makes for connection, but we are really afraid of doing that. So yeah, I'm really excited about her book. So but your next question was, when I'm trying something new, the fear of failure, huge limiting belief for sure, because we don't want to look stupid. Like, this is a big, and kiteboarding, I found myself doing this a lot. Like, if I'd be riding on the water with other people that were better than me, I would find myself not wanting to try certain tricks, because I didn't want to be seen as crashing tricks that were easier than some of the higher level people. I didn't want to be seen as looking stupid. And I was just thinking about that, you're like, wow, well, that's really limiting your progression, because if you're not even willing to try, how are you going to improve?
Right.
And in kiteboarding, that was really apparent, because if you're not trying tricks, you can't actually get better. But I would actually find myself being like, oh wow, I don't want to try this trick because I don't want to look stupid. And in business, it can be exactly the same thing. We don't want to try because we're afraid of failure, but it's really about reframing that failure as that's necessary. And the option is either try or not try. And so
Right.
are you really going to not try? I mean, is that, you really want to, limit yourself in that capability? All it takes is effort to get better, and you have to embrace the suck. I think Brene Brown says that as well. Embrace the suck, I'm pretty sure. Which I really like, because you're like, all right, I'm going to suck at this in the beginning, and that's totally okay. Yeah. I'm acknowledging that I'm even putting in the effort, and that's winning.
Yeah.
So acknowledging the effort, I think, is huge.
I love that too, because I know like a lot of women, like we're perfectionists, like we don't want to kind of like come out into the world until we perfected something.
Yeah.
But either you're an athlete or an entrepreneur, it's like you have to kind of be okay with failing, but no, like, and in terms of failing, like you're not really failing. So you fall trying a new trick and it not working out the first time. Like, of course, you haven't learned that skill yet. So like it's strengthening that muscle. But in terms of like, I've really, and as an entrepreneur, really tried to reframe it for myself of like, I'm not failing, like I'm growing and I'm learning and I'm understanding more of what's going to work and what's not. And you have, like you said, you have to be able to be willing to try. Otherwise, like you're never going to get better. And like, we're not meant to stay stagnant. Like we actually get really angry within ourselves if we don't push ourselves outside of our comfort zone. Which is why I love cycle syncing so much, because like there's so many different parts of our cycle that tell us when we're most optimized to do something. So like after a period, we're more likely to want to try something new. So you as an athlete could be like, hey, I can recognize I'm having a lot of self-doubt this past month. Right after my period, I'm going to go for it, because your brain and your body is naturally going to want to go outside your comfort zone and be challenged by something new. And then like during your period, you can kind of reflect on it a little bit too. And like you're kind of mentally preparing yourself for making change. So it's just really, I just find our minds and bodies like so amazing of like how we can use it to our advantage. Yeah.
It's so amazing. And the fact that we can get this far, like I'm 31 years old and I just found out not that long ago that cycle syncing was a thing and that it matters. Like, what? Why do we learn this when we're 12? I don't get it.
Well, it's been around for like generations. Yeah. But I think it's more like the term cycle syncing has been more popularized in recent years. But I just find it so fascinating. And I think it's so intuitive. Like every woman on a baseline understands it about herself, but it's kind of like with your mindset work of like giving yourself permission to be who you are, to want what you want, to go after, your dreams. Women don't always give ourselves permission to be ourselves. And cycle syncing kind of helps us do that. And it breaks it down into compartments that we can actually focus on week to week versus like the big overall picture, which can feel overwhelming at first, so it kind of helps break down the goals. I think it's really great for type A women too. Like I'm a control freak. So like I've really appreciated separating emotions and like just kind of flowing with myself and life better. Do you practice cycle syncing?
I haven't yet. Like I said, I just became aware about it not that long ago. And I just have started noticing how I'm feeling at different parts of my cycle, but I haven't actually, and I've like written down notes and be like, okay, this is when I should do this. This is when I should do this, but I haven't actually done it.
You're in the download phase. Like, so I work with clients a lot on cycle syncing because like women have become so curious and like fascinated on it. And I always have them do like a cycle sync journal. So kind of like you're doing where you're writing everything down. And I think that there is a download phase to just kind of having the awareness about your mind and body of like, hey, I'm recognizing I'm feeling this. And what will start happening, and I'm so excited to catch up with you after you like start doing this, is you'll start making a lot of patterns of you're like, hey, every time like after I have my period, I notice I'm like way more excited about trying a new trick. And then you can start like kind of like bringing that into your everyday life. And then like before your period, you'll start noticing like, hey, I'm starting to take stock of what worked in my routine and what didn't for this competition that I have coming up. And it gives you that space to like think about it versus like, and I think we all do this, like trying to figure something out, but we kind of come up against like a lot of blocks and we like can't figure it out. And it's not that you like can't or something's wrong with you. It's sometimes your brain is just not connected to the time of the month in which you're more open to that awareness. It's very like mind body connection. So I think
Yeah.
you'll really love getting into cycle thinking.
Cool. It's so important. And I
Yeah.
noticed it a lot. Like I said, now I'm in the download phase. And before I was even aware of it, I would notice, I'm like, gosh, like the week right before my period, I just don't feel motivated. I don't feel like, that's when it really hits me that I don't feel good enough. I don't feel successful enough. And I don't even want to try. And I knew, I was like, okay, well, my period's coming up, like PMS, obviously. But it's such a manifestation in our body. And you're just like, wow, hormones are crazy.
Yeah. But if you can start like having that awareness, it just becomes like this next level mindfulness. It's definitely helped me a lot of work through a lot of emotions, a lot of places where I was feeling stuck or playing small or even when to take a break. I think too, like, have you noticed being an athlete that you have to like talk yourself into like taking a break?
Oh yeah. And that is a really great point because taking a break is one of the ways that you can actually keep going. You have to have these phases of rest and self-care, and it's so, so important. And there's a really good analogy, I don't know if you've heard this one, which is like we are vases and we fill ourselves up with water, but women are always tipping themselves over to spill their water on other people. And if we tip ourselves over too much, we're just going to crack and break. Instead, we should keep filling ourselves up and let it overflow onto everyone else. And I think that analogy is so powerful because it's true. We can only keep continuing to fill ourselves up and let that goodness overflow. And that's what I really focus on with helping women feel good so that their goodness can flow out to the world. Because if we just try and tip ourselves over all the time, we're not going to be able to have sustained growth and passion or really anything.
Yeah, no, I totally agree because I think that's when we falter is like when we've been so giving to everyone else and not enough to ourselves. And like, I always tell women it's really good for your health to be selfish. Like, you can't, kind of like when you go on an airplane and you can't put a mask on your child until you put it on yourself. It's like, I think that's a perfect example of like, you have to take care of yourself in order to take care of others. Cause like, we're very nurturing, but it can come at the downfall of our own health, our own mindset, like stopping before we even get started. Have you ever read the book, The Big Leap by Dr. Gay Hendricks?
I feel like I read that a long time ago.
He talks about like four types of limiting beliefs that people get tripped up on when they're like up leveling. So I forget what all of them are, but one of mine is like the fear of outshining. So I'll notice like I won't go after something as fully because I fear succeeding, thinking subconsciously that me succeeding means that somebody else can't. And so it's like I'm trying to be considerate of somebody else where it's like, well, that's also damaging you. And so I guess my next point too is like, how have you been able to work through your fears and kind of bust through them, not only in your professional kiteboarding career, but then also as a female entrepreneur?
Yeah, that is such a great question because it's a constant practice and it's totally necessary to get where we want to be. And that's really what I've been working on the last 5 years is how do I keep growing my confidence, keep getting over this limiting belief and move through these self-doubt blocks. It's crazy. And a couple ways that I do that are to, number one, first acknowledge that you're right where you're supposed to be. And I know that kind of, you hear that a lot and sometimes it's a little bit too fluid of a thing, but I really like the analogy of a ladder where if you imagine yourself where you are on the ladder, there's always going to be rungs that continue to go up and there are plenty of rungs that continue to go down, and people that are ahead of you are there so that they can lend you a hand to lift you up the ladder, and you are where you are so that you can lend a hand down below to lift people below you. So no matter where you move on that ladder, there are going to be people above you and there are going to be people below you. So you are exactly where you are supposed to be on that ladder. And I like to acknowledge that because we, once again, give ourselves such a hard time. And for me, that self-doubt block was not being as far along as I should be. And it was the fear of not not looking successful, I guess,
Mhm.
of not being a success in my business. And so it was really a practice of, okay, I'm right where I'm supposed to be, and that's okay. And I I can keep going. I can keep trying. And then next, it was really to celebrate all my wins along the way. I found my other kind of limiting fear-based beliefs were really in lack and just
Mhm.
not, the lack ones,
Yeah,
not
I feel
having
like
enough.
lack is, yeah, we all struggle with a sense of lack somewhere.
Yes. And so to me, the practice that has really helped with that are to acknowledge my wins. And I try and do this as a daily practice where at the end of my workday, I write down everything that I accomplished. So whether that's work related or health related, just a couple things that I actually did that I actually accomplished, what I was proud of that day, and something exciting that happened.
Mhm.
And so these really tune me into just the little wins that come up all the time and the big wins, and get you in this mindset of thinking, oh, wow, look, things come easily to me. Like I just got a tax refund. And one
Mhm.
of my affirmations is money flows easily to me. And I was like, look at this. This is just reaffirming how money flows easily to me. And so it helps me really get over that lack, that fear of not having enough. And it's all just a practice, but I think really celebrating where we're at and acknowledging it's okay to be where we're at, and then really focusing in and finding those wins and keeping track of them so we can reference them. And when you're feeling not good, I go back and I have a wins folder on my phone with like
Mhm.
comments people have written that are nice, text messages that I get. I screenshot tons of stuff, keep it in my wins folder. And if I'm not feeling awesome, I go and look at it and I'm like, look at all these nice things people said
I
about me.
love that. Yeah. And I think like we have to be reminded because I remember reading this thing about like if you were going to go on a diet, you want to start tracking your food and writing it down, not only to figure out like where your holes are, but also because our brains quickly forget. So by the end of the day, if you were going to be like, okay, I'm going to sit down and write everything I ate, most likely you will have forgotten quantities, little things that snuck in there.
Mm.
So like the whole point is to basically be mindful throughout the day. But I love how at the end of the day, you are writing down like gratitude, your wins, something exciting, because it's easy to forget in the whirlwind of everyday life. And I think I read a lot of like Gabrielle Bernstein's books. I
Yeah.
don't know if you've ever read hers, where one of hers is like you can't practice gratitude and like comparison or anything like that at the same time. Like you can't be judging and grateful at the same time.
Yeah.
So really making sure that you're in the state of joy, gratitude, and like honoring and recognizing your emotions versus being stuck in that lack-based mentality, which I think it's natural to fall into. Like we live in a competitive world, especially for women who are driven, they want to succeed. It's easy to do. And then you throw social media on top of that. So it takes a very strong mindset to be able to separate who you are to like what you're doing to how you are in the world. And I love your ladder analogy of like, there's always going to be other people to help you get to where you're going, but also remember you have to help people along their journey as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you've gotten like really into living a high vibe life. Do
Mm-hmm.
you have any, so we heard like more of your nightly routine. Do you have anything in the morning that you do to like set yourself up for a positive day?
Yes, definitely. And I love morning routines. And I have to say, it did take me, once again, a couple years. Once I was like, oh, I need a morning routine. It took me a little while to kind of get that going. And this is all just the practice and growing together. But I always make a cup of hot water with lemon so
Yes.
that yeah, do you?
Yeah, same here. Yeah. I notice my digestion is so much better when I do that.
Yeah,
It like gets
it just gets
everything
everything
going.
moving.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's alkalizing. It's so great. And then I take that and I sit and I do my journal exercise, and I have the same journal exercise I do every day. Sometimes I'll do a brain dump if there's stuff that's bothering me, and especially during this time, it's like I'm stressed about business. So, I'll just kind of brain dump things. But then I go right into writing my gratitudes.
Mhm.
And I try and focus on, Rachel Hall has taught me this, but to focus on just the little things. So not writing down, I'm thankful for my home, I'm thankful for my health, not always focusing on the big things, but thinking through, oh, I'm really thankful for the sunshine that is on my face as I'm journaling right now. So it trains you to start looking for those little things throughout the day. And coming up with different ones every day. So I write down gratitudes, get me in that mindset, and then I write down what is something that I can get excited about today. And some days I'll find I don't have anything I can get excited about, and then I'll be like, whoa, wait, put something on your calendar, whether it's a fun dance class or making great dinner or going for a walk outside. Like, actually, if you're not finding joy in what you're doing, what are you doing? So I really think it's crucial to write down that bit of excitement piece, and also it makes you notice, okay, is my job bringing me any sort of fulfillment or joy or excitement? And if not, what do I need to change in it to adjust for that? Easier said than done, but noticing is the first step. And then thirdly, I write down my affirmations, and we know how important those are.
Do you ever, sometimes I'll like plug them into my phone to like go off randomly during the day to like, basically it's meant to like snap your subconscious mind to basically be reprogrammed, but then remember like money flows easily to me, or like, remembering abundance and just gratitude. Do you ever do that?
I haven't done the phone thing yet, although I've heard that a couple times now. And I should, but I have Post-its on my window where I work, that one's joy, one is stoke and enthusiasm, and then one's confidence. So like kind of three things that I'm working to. Those are my touchstone words that like that's how I want to be showing up as. So those are good reminders. But the phone thing is I should do that. Just why not? That's infusing yourself with a high vibe. So why not bring it?
If you can
but
also
then I do
go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh.
I was going to say you could like pinpoint the times of day that you might notice that you need it. And so you can like preempt yourself. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes it's annoying if you're like stuck in a project and then it goes off and you're like, oh, like, so sometimes I find myself just getting annoyed by the ding of an alarm. But then I read the affirmation and I'm like, okay, like that was pretty nice.
How many do you do?
Only like at the most 3, because I feel like some spiritual teachers will say like every hour, and I think when you're in a very deep period of growth, that's helpful. But as an everyday maintenance, I feel like sometimes it's only once, like that's all I can handle for the day. But like at most 3.
Yeah. Well, then I'm gonna have to try and do that tomorrow. I'm gonna put that on my.
Yeah, let me know how it goes.
Do it right now after this. But back to the morning routine, I think this is an important point to touch on, which is then I do a meditation. And it's taken me a while to get really consistent with this, but I found it to be just, especially now in a trying time, focus on what we're grateful for, focus on being centered and present, and it really just calms the whole system. I mean, we know deep belly breathing actually has an effect on the body and is beneficial, scientifically beneficial to what's happening. And so we can just focus and tune into the breath. I found that to be such a great way to start my day. And it just means getting up not even that much earlier, half an hour earlier, to incorporate these things. And I really truly believe it's a choice. But then after I meditate, I do a little bit of movement. So I try and do at least 3 sun salutations. And I can't remember who said this now, what book I read this in, but we needed to move our bodies in the morning to help wake us up. It's like sunlight and movement are the things that really actually help wake your body up, and water.
Yes, with lemon because it's cleansing.
Yeah. So I like to do movement so that number 1, I'm stretching myself out before I sit down at my desk, and then number 2, I'm actually creating some energy and getting pumped up. So that's my routine.
I love that. I have to say I don't get as consistent with my morning routine. Mine flows with my cycle. So I'll end up changing it up each week because I've noticed, we all have masculine and feminine energy. And sometimes I notice I'm too stuck in the masculine if I'm too rigid every day. And sometimes that includes even a calming morning routine. So that's just me. I don't think it's every woman, but it's just really interesting of how I can notice some of the resistance to even wanting to do something calming in the morning where I'm like mentally rejecting it. So I love that. Something I have, I don't know if you have one of these, is a happy alarm clock that like simulates the sunlight in your room to like help with the sunlight. Oh my God, I highly recommend it. So like basically it's, if you're getting up super early, so usually I get up before like the sun's up, which I think is like most people, the alarm clock will slowly like go on maybe like 20 minutes before you're meant to get up, and it's kind of like the rising sun, so the light will start like red and then get more orange and then get more
Ooh.
bright like the sunlight. So then when you're ready to wake up, it's kind of like a calming way to wake up where the sun is like in your room, and then we feel more awake when we have that sunlight. So think in the summer you're naturally more awake earlier because it's sunny out early.
Yeah.
That, I mean, that just really helps me get out of bed like
Yeah.
early.
I've
Yeah.
heard that. I've heard that.
Yeah.
So many good tools out there.
Yeah. So when you were talking about sunlight and movement, I'm like, oh my gosh, like the sunlight is like
You're nailing
so,
it.
I can't say I use it like every day. Sometimes I forget to like set it, but during the winter, it's like a needed
Yeah,
thing.
during the winter, I think would be crucial. It's crazy. So I live in Oregon, and in the summer, we have such long days. I'm from Northern California originally, and you wouldn't think that it would be such an apparent difference just going up this far.
Yeah.
But it's crazy how long. So in the morning, the sun will rise super early, and then we'll have sun until like 10 o'clock at night. And so
Right.
I don't know if I need one in the summer, but then in the winter, it's the complete opposite. We have hardly any daylight.
Yeah.
So it'd be crucial to have in the winter.
Yeah. I'm just, yeah, when you were talking about that, I just didn't know if you used one of those too.
No.
So I know that you have a freebie for everyone about how we can incorporate more of high vibes in our life. I don't know if you want to take a minute to talk about that.
Yeah, so this is really just a quick download of everything that I found to help us create more self-confidence. And it's just a little primer. I think that too much information can be overwhelming, but these are kind of my top 6 tips on how just to feel better. And there's some easy ones on there that you can just start noticing, incorporating. Number one, just being conscious of the words that we tell ourselves. I think this is such a huge thing that when you're looking in the mirror, sometimes I find, if especially like when I'm working out is a good example. If I'm working out in a big class with a mirror in front, oftentimes your eyes can kind of go to a part of your body that you're like maybe not that stoked on. So you'll be doing some squats in the mirror and have a little muffin top overhanging your yoga pants, and you immediately start judging that. And so one of my tools is to start trying to catch that. And when you hear that voice in your head or go to that point and you're like, oh man, what am I saying to myself? Immediately focus on something that's a positive. So for me, I'll be like, oh wait, look at how great my eyes look in the mirror. I'm loving the hairdo that I have today. You know, my shoulders look strong. So I actually start saying these things to yourself and training yourself to catch the negative gremlins that come up, because that is just so important in the words we tell ourselves. So I'm actually also launching a confidence course at the beginning of May, just a day-long little webinar for how to create more belief in yourself, because I think it is absolutely, I keep using the word crucial, but I don't know what else to use, because I think it's just so important for us to really acknowledge ourselves and be proud of who we are and really create more confidence in ourselves, because that's how we can shine brightly. And I think we limit ourselves so much in the words we tell ourselves. So
I know.
that's also coming up.
Yeah, so thank you for sharing all of that. I'll have the link below for everyone to check that out. And I read your high vibe guide, and I loved the affirmations that were in there. And so I was like finding myself like writing them down. So it's definitely like a must go-to spot to just kind of like reset, especially knowing we're talking to a lot of women who are going to be up leveling in their business or maybe starting a new business. Like your mindset has to be on point to be able to move forward. But thank you so much for sharing that with us, and I've really enjoyed our talk today. I'm going to share all of your information of where we can find you online, where we can buy your bikini line. Super excited for all of that, and just thank you so much for this.
Thank you. Had such a great time.